I think that Justin Gaethje is probably the most rapidly improving fighter in the UFC right now, and I have not seen such drastic improvements from an already high-level fighter since Alexander Volkanovski in 2021 when he was coming off of the Max Holloway rematch and he fought Brian Ortega and just looked like a different person. He not only head kick KO'd Dustin Poirier with a new weapon, but he shut him down in every single facet of the striking game, which was amazing. He proved me wrong again. We also had Alex Pereira proving that he's a competent grappler, Tony Ferguson losing to Bobby Green and getting submitted by the guy that's always talking about how grappling is whack, and if you're grappling, you're just coping with the fact that you can't fight. Getting subbed by that guy is definitely not a good look. We're going to get to that Derek Lewis almost having a 5-second KO Masvidal over Askren-like moment. All of these are going to be in the timestamps. If you guys want to hear my take on any particular fight from last night, just head to the description. But let's just get into the main event. Justin Gaethje not only head kick KO Dustin Poirier, but he shut him down everywhere. I was shocked, man. I was shocked. And he looked so much better than he did against Fiziev. And I don't know if that's just because maybe in hindsight, Fiziev was really a harder matchup. But at the end of the day, I don't even think I could say that. I think that Justin Gaethje is even better. Because, again, this guy would go forward on Poirier. He would throw a combination, like a 3-4 piece combo. And that's something that really impressed me because leading up into this fight, I was saying that Justin Gaethje doesn't really mix it up all that much. He kind of has the same weapons. He sticks behind like singular shots, singles and doubles, and that's kind of it. But he was going 3-4 piece combinations, moving in on Poirier, mixing it up to the body on the best boxer in the UFC, in my opinion, which is crazy. He would, sink in the low kicks every now and then. He would threaten the head kick, and the head kick was something that caught me off guard big time in the first round because I was saying, dude, that's a nasty head kick. Why doesn't Justin Gaethje throw that more often? Gaethje's looking good. Oh, head kick partially lands on the guard of Poirier. Good high kick from Gaethje. You rarely see a lot of high kicks from Gaethje. And then, of course, he ends up getting the KO in the second round. Poirier's trying to stalk him down, but he's having a hard time finding the mark. Oh! No way! Holy fuck! Gaethje just knocked out Poirier with a fucking head kick. Holy shit. And the last thing I expected was Justin Gaethje to KO Dustin Poirier with a head kick. That's just not something I would have taken into account. We only would take that into account if we've really seen that from Gaethje in the past. We know he's had great low kicks, but he doesn't really look like someone that could get a high kick up there that fast. He's got a little bit of a stiff kind of look. I know Justin is a really good athlete, but I just wouldn't have expected him to do this. And this is what kind of led to the KO. Justin Gaethje just frustrated Dustin Poirier and got him in this mindset to where Dustin was thinking about just getting moments back because Poirier was just getting beat to the punch. Gaethje would land a good combination moving forward. Poirier would counter. Gaethje would slip off an angle. He'd get hit with one shot by Dustin, and then he would land 3 more of his own. And that was the story of this fight. For every 2 shots that Dustin would land, Gaethje would have landed a couple before and 3 or 4 immediately after. So he was constantly just getting the better of Dustin in all of these exchanges, going first on him and then going third on him. And Dustin was getting pieced up. He was getting frustrated. And this is what opened him up for that high kick because he was kind of just too focused on getting the moments back. And what a performance from Justin Gaethje. For Gaethje to go out there and look like the matador against such a finesseful striker in Dustin Poirier, and for Poirier to look like the frustrated bull was something that was shocking, honestly. And this is just a testament to how impressive this victory is. I just cannot believe that he just went out there and shut Poirier down. Like, just outboxed him, outkicked him, and made Dustin Poirier really frustrated. At first, we saw a patient Poirier, but as soon as he started getting hit and had to do something about it and started to try to chase Justin Gaethje, the lack of success made him frustrated. It was Dustin Poirier that ultimately made the mistakes, that ultimately left himself open because he was the one that was frustrated because of the stonewall defense of Justin Gaethje. And I think it's just something that we have to bring up at this point. Justin Gaethje probably is one of the most defensively sound fighters in the UFC right now when it comes to strikers. And I never thought that I would be saying this. I know that Gaethje is patient. I know he's a whole lot harder to hit. But this was a moment in which he was making the best boxer, the best striker at lightweight, miss left and right. Rafael Fiziev was finding the target a whole lot more than Dustin Poirier. I will give Poirier some credit. In the first round, he landed a big left hand on Justin Gaethje, which actually stung him. It was the biggest moment in the first round. But ultimately, it was for nothing, and that was the only thing that Poirier had going. Like I was saying going into this, Poirier's got more variety with the hands. He's got more ways to attack you. He'll have more success in many different areas as opposed to Justin Gaethje, who can only really have success with an overhand, with a jab, with the big hooks, and that's kind of it. But it was the opposite, man. Dustin Poirier's only thing that he had going for him was either a low kick or the left hand, the straight left hand, and that's it. I really think that we're looking at the best striker in the lightweight division and probably the third best fighter in the lightweight division, period. Makhachev, Oliveira, and then Gaethje. And that's it. And this guy just beat Fiziev and Poirier back to back. I know we used to talk a lot of crap about Justin Gaethje ducking fights, only taking on old men, favorable matchups, sitting out for years on end. Well, he just had one of the best years of his entire career, and he just beat the two highest level opponents that he's ever beat, which is crazy. So shout out to Justin Gaethje. He's probably going to be fighting for the belt next. Is he going to be able to beat Islam Makhachev? Well, he has a whole lot better of a chance than anyone else on the feet, in my opinion, to KO Makhachev or to KO Oliveira in a rematch if Oliveira ends up beating Islam. But we still haven't seen the improvements in Justin Gaethje's grappling defense, his jiu-jitsu. I know he's got decent takedown defense, but at the end of the day, when people have attempted to take him down, they've usually got him there, and they've usually been able to clean up shop from that moment on. So I think that Makhachev would likely take him down. Makhachev is a very patient counter striker, defensively sound, doesn't really leave himself open. I think he would beat Gaethje with the first takedown that he gets, and also Oliveira. I think the first time he gets that fight to the mat, he also gets the dub. And now it's like time to talk about what's next for Dustin. I mean, this is a really crushing loss. I don't know. It's tough. He said it himself. If he's not fighting for anything in particular, he doesn't have a reason to fight, which to me sounds like if I'm not fighting for the belt, or if I'm not fighting Conor again in another money fight, and I don't think the UFC is going to do Conor and Dustin 4, which would just be the battle of the losers right now, two guys that are just coming off of losses. I just don't know if there's anything else out there for him, because I don't think that Dustin can win a belt again. He would either have to go through one of these monstrous grapplers like Charles Oliveira or Makhachev, or he would have to go back through Justin Gaethje, and I don't think that Dustin Poirier is beating Gaethje if they were to rematch. Like, Gaethje just looked to be a couple levels above him, and that KO is definitely going to deteriorate the chin of Dustin, who, going into this fight, had a granite chin, which is another thing that we need to take into account. Now he's got KO'd yet again. The last time he got put out was against Michael Johnson in 2016, and that was a while ago. So I don't think Dustin is going to be climbing the ranks anytime soon when it comes to getting a belt. I guess if you want to make a fun matchup, you could do him and Rafael Fiziev. If Fiziev gets past Gamrot, that's something that could be a potential matchup. And for Justin Gaethje, he's obviously going to be fighting the winner of Makhachev and Oliveira. So let's move on to the next fight, guys. Alex Pereira and Jan Blachowicz. Guys, this was probably the most telling performance he possibly could have gotten, because I need to just say this. He just beat his nightmare matchup at 205. He out-leg kicked the best leg kicker in the UFC, now making him the best leg kicker in the UFC. Of course, we were talking about the grappling going into this, how Jan Blachowicz is probably going to overwhelm him, but Alex Pereira fought through a really tough moment early on. It was extremely tense. He was staying calm, he was staying collected, but you could see on his face, like, this is serious. I can't make a single mistake. Jan was trying to submit him in the first round. He survived that moment. In the second round, Jan took him down again, and I was thinking to myself, bro, it's over. Jan has him down. He's just won the first round. Now he's got him in a really good position. He's in half guard. He can just ride out the rest of the round and scoot to a decision victory. And no, Alex Pereira, with his freak of nature strength and his new and improved grappling technique, just scoots back to the fence, gets up to his feet, and starts going to work, chipping away at Jan Blachowicz and outstriking him. So he not only outstruck the best light heavyweight striker in the game, he not only outkicked one of the best leg kick defenders in the history of the sport, but he basically just proved that he can take out someone that has the ability to mix it up, and that's what's so impressive. And if you look at the light heavyweight division, there's really only one other guy that's well-rounded, like Jan Blachowicz, that's all the way at the top, that can level change and actually have a lot of success with it, and that's Magomed Ankalaev. And Magomed Ankalaev is not really that much of a monster when it comes to the grappling. Like, sure, he's a small smidge above Jan Blachowicz, but that's kind of it. This is a guy in Magomed that really likes to strike. And now I can confidently say that Alex Pereira can go out there against someone like Magomed and do just fine. You know what I mean? And his chin looked rejuvenated too. He was taking big shots. And other than Magomed, there's basically no one else that's really that well-rounded. Of course, we have Alexander Rakic that's coming back, but he's coming off of a bad injury, and we don't know how that's going to look. I think he's actually going to be the one fighting Magomed, but he's not on Magomed's level with the grappling, and he certainly isn't on Jan's level with the striking or Magomed's level with the striking either, in my opinion. So Alex Pereira is looking like a guy that is probably going to be a champion. He now has takedown defense. You give this guy takedown defense and a rejuvenated chin, and you're looking at the best striker in light heavyweight by a good margin, because I understand Jan hung in there in the third round, but he wasn't winning at any point in the fight with the striking exchanges. His bread and butter, the low kicks, were not doing a damn thing for him, right? Alex Pereira had a big welt on the leg of Jan Blachowicz, stuffed the takedowns, was landing good knees in the clinch after stuffing the takedowns, and just always has the threat of being able to KO you. So this guy is extremely scary at light heavyweight. I think he's going to be a champion, and I think we will probably end up seeing a trilogy fight between him and Izzy at 205 someday. But who is he going to fight for the belt? Probably Yuri Prochazka. I've already talked about this in my recap. Yuri's another guy that could take you to a 50-50 fight real quick based on how wild he is. So if there's anyone that could KO Alex Pereira at 205, it's probably going to be Yuri. But for such a high-level striker like Pereira, Yuri makes a lot of mistakes, and we've seen him get hurt quite a lot. But I can't wait for that fight. Pereira just, once again, shut a lot of the doubters up and prove that he is a guy that's not just going to get overwhelmed on the ground, that's not just going to get beat to a pulp just because Izzy got the better of him. He's improved. Training with Glover Teixeira is really doing something, and I'm going to have to start taking this into account, guys. I've said a lot throughout my MMA YouTube run. For example, I've said like Volkanovski wouldn't be prepared for the grappling against Makhachev. Like he'd prepare, but it wouldn't be enough just because you're training with Craig Jones. Well, Makhachev's been training grappling since he was a little kid. So that's going to be something that's just too much of a hurdle to get past. I think this like heavy, specific drilling with high-level grapplers is something that I will from now on take into account and take seriously. And I'm never going to doubt someone's ability to make rapid improvements when they have like the perfect training partner who's got the perfect system, who's a high-level guy like a Glover Teixeira or even a Craig Jones. So this is something that we have to now say to ourselves, wait a second, he's training with this guy. This guy knows what the fuck he's doing. If there's anyone that can prepare a striker that should not be on the level of this grappler that they're about to take on, it's this person. But now let's get on to some other fights. Tony Ferguson and Bobby Green. It's time for Tony to hang him up. I mean, that's the first thing I'm going to say. Like, he has absolutely nothing to offer on the ground anymore. And this is something that I would not have really predicted. I wouldn't have thought that Bobby Green was going to get Tony down and beat him to a pulp in the second round, let alone submit Ferguson. And when you have a guy like Bobby Green that basically shits on grapplers and copes and says that they just want matches, they don't really want to fight, and I'm a true fighter, all that wrestling shit ain't for me, that's whack. When that guy is dominating you and beating you to a pulp on the ground and even submitting you, especially when your thing used to be like being called the Darce Knight, you know what I mean? Tony Ferguson was a submission threat back in the day. Tony Ferguson was someone that if you were to take him down, you were guaranteed to get cut open by his elbows on bottom. We see none of that these days. He's just not as strong as he used to be. He's very easy to manipulate on the ground. That's the thing. Tony Ferguson just seems like a bit of a pushover. And when Bobby Green is dominating you, take the fucking hint. So Tony Ferguson, back to the striking. Guys, I just want to say it. He didn't look horrible on the feet. He actually looked like he had some pep in his step. He looked rejuvenated. Bro, he was taking everything Bobby had to offer on the feet and just marching through it and gritting down on his mouthpiece and moving forward. Now, he was missing a lot of his shots, but when he would land big. For example, dropping Bobby Green in the first round. And Green was talking about after the fight at how Tony is so long. He's got such long arms that it's hard to get out of range after you land a good combination on him because he could catch you at the end of one of these shots. And this is how he was able to put Michael Chandler down in the first round of their fight. And this is not a reason to say that Tony should keep fighting. Oh, he looked good. He was taking shots well. He was marching Bobby Green down and having success. When I say success, I'm talking about success compared to what I imagined from a very washed up version of Tony Ferguson. I expected him to come out there looking very slow, lethargic, not reacting well to getting hit, not being as tough. He looked tough, but at the end of the day, toughness is not the end-all be-all. Tony Ferguson got absolutely battered to a pulp in this fight, even in the first round, in the second round, and especially in the third round. Now, the thing about Bobby Green, though, and for him moving forward, it worries me if you're a Green fan. Bobby Green can land 150 significant strikes on your head and still really not rock you and still not have you hurt. And we saw Tony Ferguson rock Bobby Green and put him down in this fight. And we know that Green has gotten KO'd by Dober recently. We've seen Green get KO'd by Poirier in the past. We've seen him get dropped in this fight. Is his chin deteriorating? And if it is, what's going to happen if he's in there against someone that's just a couple of steps above Tony Ferguson at this point, that's willing to eat those shots to land one of their own? I don't know if Bobby Green has the best style to continue to outbox people at the top of the rankings. For sure, he's going to be cleaning up on people outside of the rankings, because let's just get this out of the way, because this is not all about Tony Ferguson. Bobby Green has such an entertaining style in the cage, and it's just the power that he's lacking, which is a little bit weird because Bobby Green looks like a pretty strong guy. He has a lot of muscle on his frame, so I'm surprised as to how he's not able to like fuck people up that badly with the power in his hands. It's just lacking for whatever reason. But his grappling looked good too. We know Bobby Green has a wrestling background. He just never really uses it. Used it at the beginning of his career, but it's all the striking these days. And again, that's really what it boils down to. This is the reason why Tony should retire, not only because he took a fuckload of damage, and he's definitely not going to beat anyone worth a damn at this point in his UFC career, but he also got dominated on the ground by Bobby Green. And if this were a prime Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green would not be keen to just sit in Tony's guard and land hammer fists at will. And I know Tony's extremely stubborn. He's got no self-awareness, but someone has to step in, and if the UFC continues to let Tony Ferguson fight, they don't give two fucks about this guy's health. I already know that the UFC doesn't give that much of a fuck about their fighters' health. Let's be real. But at the end of the day, letting Tony fight from here on out, knowing that he basically has no way to beat people, like Bobby Green, beat him up on the ground. Tony Ferguson's, one of the most dangerous aspects of his game back in the day was his ground game. It's completely gone. And now we know on the feet, it's like he's getting his ass beat there too. Bobby Green's a good striker, but I think Tony would get his ass kicked by Jared Gordon. I think Tony would get his ass kicked by your average run-of-the-mill lightweight fighter at this point. So the UFC needs to fucking kick him out. So I think that the UFC, if they really give two shits about Ferguson, they need to have a serious sit-down conversation with him and say, dude, we're not going to let you fight anymore. Like, you're done. You're done. And I know Ferguson isn't going to want to hear it. He's delusional. He's going to throw a tantrum. But at the end of the day, his health is just going to keep declining. It's already probably beyond the point of no return. We don't want to see it get worse. I understand if Tony wants to fight, he'll go to some other promotion. It's, at the end of the day, his decision. But if the UFC has any integrity, if the UFC has any morality, they will step in and not allow Tony Ferguson to fight for them ever again. I don't want to see him fight. Let's get on to the next one. Derek Lewis going out the gates with a flying knee KO attempt on Marcos Rogério de Lima. Guys, I picked Marcos Rogério de Lima to win this fight. I was saying that Derek Lewis, at this point in his career, is showing up for paychecks. He's got the fuck it attitude when he gets hit. He kind of wilts. It's not like he's getting KO'd, but again, he doesn't really respond well to getting hit, and he kind of checks out early. But he went into this fight saying that I'm going to show up with a six-pack, and I was saying, I don't care if Derek Lewis is talking about showing up with a six-pack. Like, he's proven otherwise. I'm looking at his actions, which speak louder than words, and that's why I'm picking against Derek Lewis going into this fight. Derek Lewis is always telling us how, I'm finally healthy. I'm losing weight this time. But guess what? His actions were louder than my words last night because he went out there with a flying knee, with pep in his step, and just landed the first fucking strike that he threw on Marcos Rogério de Lima, which was shocking to see. I wish that Marcos were to have just gone out, because that would have been one of the craziest moments in UFC history if he were to tie the record that Masvidal set on Ben Askren. I don't know how he did get flatlined. I mean, that's a big guy flying through the air, landing a knee flush on your chin. So that's just crazy to think about how he didn't go out. He's back. His career is basically rejuvenated with this moment. You could tell how happy he was as well. Took his fucking pants off, bro. Derek Lewis recreating the moment that he gave us in 2000 and what was it, 18 UFC 229 on the Conor card. And this is probably the best win of his entire career since that Volkov win. Because, of course, we've seen Derek Lewis KO Curtis Blades, but that was at the Apex. But he just went out there and got a fucking flying knee finish in the first minute of the fight. And as a fan, even though I picked Marcos Rogerio de Lima, I have no attachment to Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I don't give a fuck about Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He's a good fighter. He's decent, but I'm happy that Derek Lewis got the win. He's a fan favorite. He's been one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC, in the heavyweight division for a long time. Who is he going to fight next? I wouldn't mind seeing Derek Lewis fight Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I don't think we've ever seen that, so I'd love to see that as well. I know that we're going to get flashbacks of Jairzinho getting KO'd by Francis Ngannou, and Derek Lewis has that chance, but let's make that fight. Jairzinho just got choked out by Jailton Almeida. Derek Lewis is coming off of a good win. I think it's about time that they actually go in there and fight each other. But let's get on to the next one. Kevin Holland submitting Michael Chiesa. Guys, another pick, surprise, surprise, that I was wrong on. And I was saying going into this, if Michael Chiesa really commits to a takedown, he will get it. And guess what? He put everything into taking Kevin Holland down. He had 2 full commitment attempts, and Kevin Holland stuffed the takedowns. And you know what? Maybe Kevin Holland really was improving, because he did put up a good scramble against Khamzat Chimaev, and he just took a bit of a step down in competition against Michael Chiesa, who was looking massive in the cage. Early on, I was actually saying, wait a second, Michael Chiesa looks big. This is something that's really good. We know that he's a big welterweight, but either way, he was looking way bigger than Kevin Holland, but he still couldn't get the takedown. Got both of them stuffed, and eventually got hit with a big knee in the clinch, and Kevin Holland submitted him with a darts choke. This is the second time we've seen Michael Chiesa get subbed with the darts, or maybe Luque got him with an anaconda, but either way, Michael Chiesa's submission defense is not all that great. You know, he's been submitted a few times now in his career. Of course, he got subbed by Kevin Lee back in the day, and I'm going to have to start respecting the grappling of Kevin Holland, because he really just went out there and proved it. This is the best win he's ever had over a guy that's trying to fully commit to taking him down. Because other than that, like, what grapplers has Kevin Holland ever stopped or even had success with? Marvin Vettori 50-45 them. Derek Brunson 50-45 them. Khamzat Chimaev destroyed him and subbed him. And of course, we have the Jacare Souza fight, but Jacare Souza was an old man that needed a cane. You know what I mean? So I'm not really going to put too much stake into that. Kevin Holland just stuffed takedowns from a big welterweight in Michael Chiesa, who is a pretty high-level grappler for that division, and sunned him, schooled him. And I have to say, this is probably Kevin Holland's best ever performance in the UFC, because of course we've seen him KO people like Joaquin Buckley. We've seen him beat Dirty Bird Tim Means. But taking out a guy that is basically his antithesis, the one that's going to try to take him down and spoil the party, taking him out in the first round, rocking him with a knee in the clinch, and subbing him is amazing. Kevin Holland's grappling is improving. His wrestling is improving. He's only 30 years old, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from Kevin Holland, man. I wasn't impressed with his last performance against Santiago Ponzinibbio, but now he looks like he's rejuvenated. He's just beat a guy that's maybe just right outside the rankings, and I think we should probably see Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena. That would be an excellent matchup. They're both in a similar spot at this point. I think that JDM's just slightly a little bit higher ranked than Kevin Holland, but I think we should make that fight. Holland likes to stay active. I know that Wonderboy pulled out, but Wonderboy is going to take his sweet time. He just went through a weight cut at the age of 40. I think Kevin Holland would be more willing to make a quick turnaround for the Sydney card. So that's the matchup that I want to see. And hey, Kevin Holland could go out there, rock JDM, and latch up a submission, or even take Jack Della Maddalena down too, because when guys really improve with their defensive wrestling and grappling skills, they could usually do it offensively as well. But let's move on to the next one. The Walmart Yoel Romero, Claudio Ribeiro, getting KO'd with a head kick from the middleweight Petr Yan. Bro, I love Roman Kopylov, man. This guy is so fun to watch. He hasn't been in the UFC for that long, but he has just finished 2 scary power punchers in the middleweight division, in Punelli Soriano and now Claudio Ribeiro. I picked him to win this fight. He really does remind me of Petr Yan mixed with like a Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker in the sense that he's so fast when he closes the distance. He leaps in and he's just got such a quick entry. And also Petr Yan in the sense that he's got these wicked body kicks, but for the most part, he is a boxer who's got fast hands, good head movement, and his ability to time that head kick was beautiful. We saw Ribeiro moving around like Yoel Romero, as I expected, side to side, trying to lull Kopylov in, and Kopylov timed his movement as he was going side to side to fire off a kick to meet him halfway. and it was amazing. A really good finish. He dominated Ribeiro in the first round. But either way, amazing victory for Roman Kopylov. I think that this is a guy that is definitely going to crack the rankings, and he is going to be someone that you got to keep your eye out on because he's got such good skills, such good technique on the feet. He's got power as well. But I want to see his grappling tested a little bit. And I know he's lost to Albert Duraev, but there's someone that just beat Albert Duraev that I think he should fight next. Also, just outside of the rankings, whoever would win this fight would probably crack the top 15. I want to see Roman Kopylov fight the Iron Turtle Jung Young Park that has 4 submissions in the UFC. I think 3 or 4 submissions. He's very dangerous on the ground. He's got a nasty jab, Jung Young Park that is, and he's pretty good on the feet too. So this would be a good test against a well-rounded opponent that has the ability to submit you, to level change, to take you down, and I want to see how Roman Kopylov would deal with that, and it also make for a really good striking battle. So let's make that happen as well. Another fight that we need to get to is Trevin Giles getting subbed by Gabriel Bonfim. I picked Gabriel Bonfim to get it done early by a TKO on the ground or a submission. He got the guillotine. This guy's got nasty ability to find a submission. And at the end of the day, this is just a perfect example of how important it is to impose your will and how that sets you apart right off the bat from like 50% of fighters in every single division. Like Trevin Giles is someone that's got a decent jab. He's got decent footwork, but what does he really do out there? Who is he? A finisher? Is he taking it to people? Is he marching people down? Is he a man on the mission? Is he trying to take people down? No, he just kind of floats around there and just tries to look smooth on the feet and is low output and looks like he's just a robot out there. Whereas we have Gabriel Bonfim marching him down, chucking hands. Now, of course, there were moments where Gabriel Bonfim looked wild and he was winging big hooks in the pocket with Trevin Giles, but Giles doesn't have a lot of power either. So it was a good plan for him to do that, to kind of drag Giles into a scrap early on, and then he was able to latch up a guillotine. And again, this is just an example of what it means to actually go out there with a plan against a guy like Trevin Giles that just goes out there and floats around and does really nothing. So this was a really good win for Gabriel Bonfim. I still am a little bit worried about him in the future because I think he's a little wild on the feet. He's open on the feet. His power isn't anything crazy. He doesn't have a long reach. If he's not able to take people down and submit them, and he's fighting a guy that has some pop in his hands, that could be a real issue for the 25-year-old Gabriel Bonfim. I think he should maybe take some time off to just skill build and really improve, sit out for the rest of the year. But if he wants to fight again, I'll be dying to see it because he's very entertaining. He's got the typical Brazilian bite down in the mouthpiece style, move forward and go for a finish no matter the cost. And I love that style. So Gabriel Bonfim really showed out. Did not get fraud checked. If he were to lose to Trevin Giles, that would be pathetic. So I want to see him get a step up in competition, but we don't want to bring him up too high because he only is 25 years old and he still has some issues in his game, which is the striking. I know he comes from a boxing background, but it looks a little sloppy to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. Until next time.